The gum you chewed this morning might be the longest-lasting personal object you'll ever leave behind. We know that because a 5,700-year-old piece of chewing gum just revealed almost everything about the person who chewed it. This is the nearly 6,000-year story of one of the most ordinary things in the world, and it begins long before sugar, mint, or anything we'd call candy. The first chewing gum was birch bark pitch, made by Stone Age hunter-gatherers in northern Europe. They heated birch bark with almost no oxygen until it became a black, sticky tar. That tar did 3 jobs. It glued stone tools to wooden handles, it worked as an antiseptic, and people chewed it, leaving behind lumps still marked with their teeth. Why chew it? Maybe to soften it for glue, maybe to ease a toothache, or maybe just out of habit. The most striking evidence comes from Syltholm, in Denmark, a piece of birch pitch about 5,700 years old. It preserved the entire genome of the person who chewed it. A young girl with blue eyes, dark skin, and dark hair. It even held the bacteria in her mouth and traces of her last meal, hazelnuts and duck. But birch tar was bitter and hardened quickly. It was a tool, not a treat, and for chewing to become something pleasant, people needed a better material. Around the Mediterranean, people turned to mastic, a resin from the mastic tree, which grows mostly on the Greek island of Chios. This was a shift in purpose. The Greeks chewed mastic to freshen their breath and clean their teeth. The link even survives in language. The word masticate, meaning to chew, comes from it. Mastic was far more pleasant than birch tar, but it was tied to one tree, on one island. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a different civilization was chewing something that would become the basis of modern gum. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztecs chewed chicle, the sap of the sapodilla tree. The Aztecs called it T.Z.T, which is where the word chicle comes from. They chewed it to clean their teeth, freshen their breath, and hold off hunger. It even came with social rules. By colonial accounts, children and unmarried women could chew it in public, but married women did so privately, and a man chewing in public was seen as improper. Chicle had one big advantage over mastic. It was far chewier and stayed soft much longer. But like mastic, it was still a natural tree resin, and it would take centuries to industrialize. In North America, settlers picked up the habit of chewing spruce resin from Native Americans. In 1848, John Curtis made and sold the first commercial chewing gum, packaged spruce resin. Sweetened paraffin wax gum soon followed. This was the first time gum was manufactured and sold as a product. But spruce resin had a harsh, piney taste, and paraffin was bland and crumbly. What was missing was a base both chewy and neutral in flavor, and it came from an unexpected source. Around 1869, the exiled Mexican general Antonio López de Santa Anna brought chicle to New York, hoping to turn it into a rubber substitute with the help of inventor Thomas Adams. The rubber idea failed, but Adams realized chicle made a perfect gum base. He launched chicle gum in the early 1870s, then added flavors like licorice. The next leap was marketing. In the 1890s, William Wrigley Jr. released juicy fruit and spearmint, turning gum into a mass phenomenon. By 1928, Walter Deemer created the bubble gum, Double Bubble, and it was pink simply because that was the only dye in the factory that day. An accident. That became the default color of bubble gum ever since. Chicle made gum chewy, flavorful, and mass-produced. But it had a fatal weakness. Soaring demand over-harvested the sapodilla trees, and the Second World War cut off supply. The industry needed a base that didn't depend on trees at all. After World War II, manufacturers switched to synthetic bases made from man-made rubber polymers. Modern gum is basically a synthetic base, sweeteners, flavors, and softeners. In other words, what you chew today is closer to the materials in tires and plastics than to any tree resin. This made gum chewier, longer lasting, and cheaper than ever. But it created a very modern problem. Synthetic gum barely breaks down, so it clings to sidewalks, and has become one of the hardest forms of city litter to remove. So what about the future? Most likely, people will still be chewing gum. It'll just do more than taste good. Chewing is a way to deliver substances through the mouth, so gum is a natural carrier for something useful. This has already started. There's gum with nicotine to quit smoking, and gum with caffeine to stay alert. Next might be gum with vitamins, gum that carries medicine, or even gum that can warn you about illness. There's research into gum that changes flavor when it detects an infection in your mouth. The other direction is litter. Because synthetic gum barely decomposes, people are developing biodegradable bases and returning to natural chicle. So a discarded piece won't be a permanent stain on the pavement. One day, we might chew gum not just for fresh breath, but to stay healthy, and have it vanish cleanly when we're done. Come back to the gum in your mouth. It's a flavored synthetic polymer, the latest version of a habit at least 5,700 years old, running unbroken from birch tar through mastic and chicle to something close to industrial plastic. And here's the strangest part. That lump of birch pitch in Denmark lasted long enough to tell us who chewed it, what they ate, and what lived in their mouth. Of all the things humans have ever made, gum may be the most personal thing we leave behind, an accidental, biological record of our own bodies. The piece you spit out today could, in theory, do the same thing 5,000 years from now.